Yeah, so what we're going to talk about now is our vision and progress towards that vision. And it really hasn't changed from day one. We started out with a goal of doing something different for supply chain planning, and we're going to bring up a few folks. Thanks for coming up now. And with a vision to do something different across the spectrum of supply chain planning, sales and operations planning. And so from that very beginning, when we started, we had the experience of working in this space for many decades, but we also had a blank piece of paper. How can we think of planning differently? And so the word agent, maybe agentic AI, wasn't around in 2019, 2020, but if you look at our code, it's there. It calls out agents running plans for people. Because people can only run one plan at a time. It takes a long time to try different things and look at the optionality of testing different methods for forecasting, or adding other signals for demand planning. What does sales say? What does the marketplace say? What does finance say? And comparing all those different signals. Running tries across inventory, different echelons, different items that relate to an overall inventory availability plan. Trying all those things. Agents run that instead of users trying one at a time. And then thousands of plans to test all the optionality on the supply side in terms of the make, move, buy decisions. And every supply chain has those options and those trade-offs. And so what we built from day one was the ability for agents to run all of this. And so we really kind of fell into where we're at in the world today. And our attention is turned then to the users. How do the users interact? When the agents are doing a lot of work, there's still a lot of places for context and judgment and decisions and supervision and training. And so that's been our focus for now 6, 7 years, and what we've been building, and it opens the door to a world of potential. But let me catch you up now on a demo that Sneha is going to do on what does that look like today. And we're going to go into more detail, but at least you'll see a high-level view of what we're doing on top of that architecture and technology to make it a really powerful solution. Sneha.
So you've all heard us talk about planning agents. A lot of you use today that in the platform. You've heard about Polymatic. It's in part of your supply. You've heard about domain planning, about inventory optimization. So day in and day out, you've been using the platform to kind of invoke this intelligence with it. Now there's a way for all of you to talk to that intelligence right through the platform. And that's what we're going to see today, is how do you invoke this intelligence and connect it to all the different planning agents that exist within the platform. So it's time to meet our little planning assistants here, Quincy. We're going to be using and invoking Quincy for a lot of our conversations today. You'll see that it can listen to or understand a lot of the information that already exists, but it can also invoke and do the task on your behalf. So for today, we'll just get started and kind of know, hey, I've got an emergency. How does Quincy react to it without me having to run these manually together within the platform? So I'm going to just go ahead and say, hey there. And you have to excuse my voice this morning. I can promise you I wasn't porting last night at all. This is just how it happened to be over the weekend. All right, so it already knows the context. It's nowhere are in supply plan because that's where I've invoked. You'll kind of see Quincy throughout our workspaces today. But for that, I'm going to say, hey, do you have any knowledge of our supply planning roles? So as it's going through it, I do wanted to make sure that when we run these scenarios through Quincy, we understand the difference of the old way of kind of doing it, which is still a pretty valid way of doing within the platform. But when you're interacting with this, as a planner, when I had an emergency before, I would always go up to alerts and say, what is the thing that is priority on my plate? Where do I get started? What do I focus on today? Well, with Quincy, you don't have to, because it realizes different planning roles that you're going to be in. It realizes what you need to be able to invoke and get into. So we'll take a role of supply planner today. I will be that. And I will go through a scenario where, say, my supplier just called and said, you're going to be late on the order. What I do need to do about it? What are my options? It's a pretty typical role in a use case that a supply planning faces in. So let's see how Quincy interacts and does some of the calculations on our behalf. While Quincy is off to races, our old way of doing it is, of course, going through the alerts, looking at all of this and say, I can see there's shortages. The next thing with these is, okay, I've got a shortage. Where do I go next? So usually I'll kind of find recommendations in here to say, great, what do I expedite? What do I cancel? What do I go approve as a supply order? But first, let me know what the impact is on my customers. So that was another way for me interacting and saying, how many customers are impacted? What's my risk to revenue? And with Quincy, you don't necessarily have to kind of feed and find out those manually. You're gonna say, great, I see all the ones that had shortages that we just listed down, and I'm gonna go ahead and ask, what is the impact on my customer risk and customer revenue? All right? While it's gonna look into these, as you can see, these are the progressions that I'm taking as a supply planner. Know that with Quincy, I don't necessarily have to take these steps. The only reason for me kind of taking these steps is to make sure I could connect it back to our old way of sort of doing it. So ideally, I would go in demand and say, how many of these are gonna be late? How much are they gonna be late? Which of these are impactful customer orders? Are these my priority orders? What is my risk to revenue? So I would go in my summary, I would look at how many orders are gonna be late in total, what is the total risk and revenue that it's gonna impact, and when is it gonna impact, and which of these are it's gonna impact. But with Quincy, all of that is part of the analysis that's able to do, kind of look at, and right away, as you can see, it's saying I've got a lot of orders, that is a lot that is at risk right now. Which of these are at risk? How many days are they going to be late? And what are the most impactful customer? In my case, there's only one primary customer, but it's a pretty important customer that's going to get impacted. And immediately, it has options for me. So you can go ahead and expedite it and send an email to supplier right away, or you can talk about other options, or you can have different information that you want to dive deeper into. So for our sake, I'm gonna say, don't forget about this, I don't wanna expedite, let's go ahead and find alternate options, because there's already alternate options I know that exist in the planning agents that is mining these intelligence. So I'll go ahead and ask for what these alternate options are. And again, the old way of doing this is kind of analyzing it and saying, what are my options? Where can I manufacture and produce this? So you'll ideally go into supply availability, order analysis, and say, what is my other options that are available? Can I take it or transfer it? You probably have these recommendations that is already being suggested by Polymatic in there, but you're kind of going in and saying, well, I need to focus on these. I need to prioritize these. But with Quincy, because it's able to run these analysis itself, it knows that I've got different options I can do. I can have transfers. I can suggest recommendation to go produce from a different manufacturing plant. And all of these have different impacts into analysis and what it can run. So as you see, I'm going to go ahead and ask it to create something for me. But as you see, it says, I've got all these source options and can invoke, and what those options are going to be, and how is this going to impact my current risk to revenue. So I've asked it to go ahead and create a scenario for me to test, because I want to make sure that this is what I'm going to be going through. As it is creating the scenarios and it's going to analyze all of this information, it is where we talk about the planer and the rope. So in an automated fashion, when I was having these conversations, you don't necessarily have to have these conversations in a way that I was. You can always task Quincy. So even when I started first, I could always say, go ahead and prioritize what's on my plate, which you'll see later in the demos and throughout the breakout session, where it's gonna go ahead and prioritize those and only include you when there are options where it has to ask you to do something or it needs your permission to go ahead and do something. So it did ask me those permissions because it needed me to make sure that I was okay creating these scenarios. And you saw that it has these scenarios that it has automatically created, that it's gonna go ahead and try and test these testings for you. It's gonna create an impact result to it, and then it's gonna ask if this is okay for you to approve. All of this, ideally, even with the powerful planning platform, would take you quite a while to understand, what do I expedite? What options do I try? Or maybe I wanted to go back and say, try all of these options. I don't want to stick to one option. All of these look great to me. And try all of them and see which of these is going to give me the best results. All of that are things that Quincy kind of handles using the same planning intelligence, the polymatic solve that it is able to run and find those, but it's able to invoke and get connected to it. So I'm going to say, yes, go ahead and try this, test this out, make sure that it is going to generate the recommendation. So you'll see that it's actually kind of solving this for you to be able to say, okay, here's the results I'm going to be able to say. And when it is done solving, it's going to do a comparison results and so on. So all that automated flow that we just walked through, which probably took us about 5 to 7 minutes, is something that can be a task-oriented, where that's the first thing it runs every morning for you, builds that in an email and says, here's the task I need your approval for. Can I go ahead and execute it? And you're responding it back. Or you're responding it through Slack. So that's something that we're going to do next, is want to go make sure I can have this approved and my team look at it. So we'll say, great. I know there's going to be some risk to revenue. Let's go ahead and make sure that it can run those analysis and send it for approval. All right, it's going to come back and approve as it is going back and approving and doing all this on behalf. Because we have run through a lot of these scenarios, you kind of already see that in visually, which is what you'll see in a lot of details. But I can see a lot of these inputs, which had Belgium being at risk, is wiped out. Canada is still at risk. Germany and DCs, they are all okay with these options. So there is some risk remaining, because if you recall, there were a lot of options that wanted to try. But we chose one of them for our sake to go ahead and do with it. So it's probably that will return that what are my other options to recover the rest of the risk, and on goes and for being able to try and simulate. The good thing about Quincy, it never sleeps, which means that we get to take a break. It gets to automate tasks, it gets to set results, and it gets to set all of this back to your Slack and have it for approval for you to be able to run it. Another important thing as we go through it is, as you see a lot of times when it is running something, it will ask you to kind of say, hey, there's a Slack for an approval. That is, again, a planner in loop, where we want to make sure that when you're interacting with these planning agents, it is making sure it's running a scenario and handing it off to your team, where you can still follow an approval process, still look at the comparisons and the results, versus it automating the task. If we don't want to do that, we're comfortable in making decisions that will help us, we're comfortable with certain kind of decisions, well, that's an intelligence that Quincy can take in and say, I've seen you approve this, those can be auto-approved, and you don't have to necessarily pass through the Slack. So you saw that it, recovered some. It has options for me to say, here's how you can solve the Canada delay, exactly what we saw. And then, of course, if you've got the Slack, they've got messages in here for your team to interact and say, this is all the thing that I've been doing. This is what I want you to approve. Do you approve or reject this, and what are your options for it to go ahead and commit to a plan?
Great. Thanks, Sneha. There's a lot there. And we're excited about all the ways you can deploy that. And hopefully that just plants some seeds, because there really is so much potential of how you can run the business with this kind of approach and tools. The dashboards and the work queues are still there. But there's a new way, maybe, of working, of how people engage, where decisions are made, how they make those decisions, with what information. And so we're in a new frontier of thinking and imagining our business, and we're excited about the ability for us to serve you in that way. So well done, Sneha. And let's talk about the next one now. So we have a few more demos that we want to give you a big picture, because when we see what we can do in planning at speed and scale, we feel like we can deliver those answers across the business. And the reality is, there's a whole set of decision makers and questions that happen in a company that largely go unanswered. Or if they're answered in a very manual way with emails and phone calls and delays. And so there's not the speed and scale that they need to make decisions and have conversations with customers or with marketing decisions. Finance has questions. Of course, the customers and the customer service and field service all have questions, and they're trying to run their business. But by providing them insights and intelligence on demand, real time, into the job that they're doing, we can help them do that job better, and everyone will win together. So that's been our vision from day one, why we have a Salesforce-enabled architecture. If you have Salesforce, you'll see things that are ready to deploy. If you don't, it's all still in a world of plug-and-play AI with our open architecture, and we can work with any CRM system. But we're building things first and foremost on Salesforce with the technology like Slack and Slackbots and the advantages that gives us. So with that, I'm going to ask Nick to give us the next demo and how ketteQ plays and delivers value in the world of CRM.
Thank you very much. So when I think about revenue at risk, as Mike mentioned, it's not just a supply chain issue or a supply chain problem that needs solved there. It's a customer problem as well. And so we need to be able to solve that for our customers. And oftentimes in our organizations, the person closest to the customer, the sales team, is not in the supply chain tools day in and day out. And so we've built CRM capabilities that can meet them where they are. You'll see I'm in Salesforce here. I've got a revenue at risk dashboard. I can see how many of my team's opportunities are at risk. So I'm a manager covering multiple teams and multiple opportunities here. I can see the total revenue at risk, an average risk score, number of opportunities by different horizons, and I can see all of those individual opportunities down below and the details associated with them. I can zoom into a particular horizon and get a deeper look at that. And I can even zoom into a specific opportunity and see all of the detail associated with that opportunity. So this one's getting ready to close. It's at a 90% probability. We're looking to close it in the next few days, but they've got a requested date and an ETA date that is over 30 days from the requested date. So I can drill into this specific opportunity and see all of the details associated with it. I can see the risk score. I can see the quantity that they're ordering. And we can see that they're a low priority opportunity at this point. So in a legacy world, I might have needed to call Sneha, have her do all the great things that she showed with Quincy today. But we've built this CRM tool and capability that works with Salesforce and any CRM, where I can start working in Salesforce here with Claude or OpenAI or any of the LLMs that you currently leverage today. We could use Copilot or any other LLM and connect that to our Polymatic Solve, and it's going to start suggesting opportunities here to help mitigate this revenue at risk. So it's actively giving me mitigation options. I can increase the priority. I can look for alternative products. I can split the opportunity. And all I have to do is click one of these and submit that. And behind the scenes, ketteQ and our Polymatic Solve is looking at, well, if we want to look at alternate products, what are the available products for this opportunity? What could we do to try and get something there on time? It's running those solves in the background and then providing that to the sales manager here, where they don't have to go and be a part of the supply chain planning tools or call Sneha or her team and wait for a response. I can see that I can get some product in on time, and I could be doing this as I'm working with the customer on the phone. And so they could get this detail and say, yeah, that works for me, or no, it doesn't work. I could look at splitting the opportunity. So if they're buying 190 units, maybe we can get 100 there or 150 on time. Maybe that's enough for the customer, and they're willing to wait the additional 2 weeks or whatever it is to get that full order. So again, behind the scenes, it's using that Polymatic Solve. It's running hundreds or thousands of scenarios to try and find out the best one for this particular mitigation strategy. And it's come back and said, you know, we could get 100 units there May 18th, and then the remaining there on June 10th, the remaining 90 units. I could work with the customer again on the phone, and they say, I really need it there on the 2nd, the 18th isn't going to work for me. And so I could say, I'm going to just go ahead and update the priority to high. So this might be something that you're willing to do in a unique event. It's probably not something you're going to do for every single opportunity, but by setting the priority to high or requesting we set the priority to high, we can unlock revenue or inventory that's reserved for high priority customers, or we could start to reprioritize all of our orders together. And I, as a manager, might be able to see across my opportunities which ones I want prioritized, but I might need to work with other managers or work with my executive team to make sure that this is something that we want to do as an organization. And so we can update that priority to high. We can suggest that update. This will, again, integrate with Slack or other approval tools to make sure that you can see what are the other affected opportunities, what's going to be impacted if we do this, if we move forward, and what does that mean for this opportunity? When are we able to actually get it there by setting it to a high priority? We can see the total revenue impacted, and we can submit this for approval. And so later on today, you'll see where this goes after this and how that approval process works. Phil Laster and ACG are doing this today.
Great. Thanks, Nick. That was great. Yeah, that's just one example of a use case and some places for supply chain to add intelligence and insights. But there's, in every organization, we believe there's hundreds or maybe thousands of places where you can provide service and value to the rest of the company. So, I mean, we're focused on supply chain here, but there's a huge opportunity for you to serve the rest of the company and help them grow revenue and serve customers. And that's what this is really all about. So from here, then, we want to look at where we go with regards to how we leverage these planning agents at speed and scale that run on any planning platform or ERP system, obviously, and deliver that into where they're executed. We saw glimpses of that with Sneha's demo. But with what we have now, we can have automated two-way communication to people inside or outside the company by leveraging AI. It's not going to handle every use case or all that communication to complete, but it's going to be able to automate a lot of this, routine tasks across the business where the plan is implemented and tracked and managed. And users can handle the exceptions with context and judgment, and stakeholders across the company, extended company, customers to suppliers, can have a conversational experience in how they interact. So if you think about sales and suggested orders, you're going to see a demo of this tomorrow. We're really excited about the potential for us to bring suggested orders into sales as they engage with their customers. And there's a great use case within Coca-Cola and hundreds of bottlers that are doing that every week as they out-execute Pepsi by being in the stores and working with those store owners. There's some analytics and workflow that can come out of ketteQ with the speed and scale of the agents that we have on the planning side. Fulfillment then comes next. Okay, now that it's sold, how do we manage all the fulfillment decisions and options there? When customers escalate, how do we find alerts before they escalate and manage that in a very constructive way with everyone that might be involved in triaging that or communicating that? There's great opportunities there on the orchestration side of our solutions. Supply, of course, everyone's involved in managing supply. There's a great supply plan, but it doesn't always work out in reality. Things happen on the supply side, disruptions. So getting ahead of that and tracking where confirmation should happen and expedites and drive that supply plan as best as possible can be done with intelligence of our system and the AI solutions that we have. And then a service, the question, where's my service, just like where's my order, all has a supply chain behind those questions that we can equip. and enable on that side of the business. So when you think about all that's happening, there's places for, instead of humans in the loop, it's humans on the loop. And that's kind of what we're starting to really see, and hopefully you saw in the demos as well, is what's the role of the person with all this automation and possibilities? There's always opportunities to review and then to monitor. Did the message that went out, did we get a call, did we get a message back? We asked, did you get this PO? When are we going to get this order? Did we get an answer back? So users come in when there's delays or uncertainties or questions. They also come in when replies show up, and we can process those automatically in an unstructured way and bring that into our agents and what's happening there. But there's always places for context and judgment. Yes, we can expedite it, but it's a 10% uplift. So those are the kinds of places where humans bring all of those insights into it, but that signal goes back and forth with planning. And so we see the relationship. When we look at these use cases, for us at ketteQ, we're saying, is it planning enabled? Is the plan part of creating and addressing this use case? And so the plan in supply is, generating the requisitions and then driving that to user approved or automated process, and then all the way to a PO in the ERP system and out to the supplier. But then there's a whole set of processes, and we see this in customers today, where it becomes manual, tracking that PO. Did you get it? Confirming, are we going to get it on time? First knowing which ones to worry about, and then knowing the ones that, okay, we're behind, whether demand was more or supply chain was slower than we expected. Now we have to expedite. We have to work closely with those suppliers. That's the side that we want to be able to work on. And there's a number of use cases when you start to think about that happen in today's organizations, largely manual. And so we can start to really drive a closer relationship with more predictable and dependable supply, but with agents interacting around all these communication vehicles to suppliers, but also internally. A lot of emails fly around on things, but to be able to coordinate that communication can be really important for the company to work efficiently and effectively together on a platform that ties it all together. And that's what we're driving and looking forward to in our orchestration solutions. And you'll see one now, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow with the AI studio and the things that we've got planned. But for now, let's go to Tammy for our third demo and a look into supply orchestration. Tammy.
Well, as a planner, I typically start my day looking at a dashboard similar to this one. It has a lot of information, KPIs about the health of my supply chain, and it's got a long list of things that I need to look at, exceptions, alerts. It's definitely telling me what's happening in the supply chain, but it's not necessarily telling me what I should do about it. And in addition, I've got emails stacking up in my inbox from suppliers where I need to get back to them about what they're contacting me about. But this is really the old way of working. And ketteQ is introducing our supply orchestration solution with agents to help us with the new way that's coming. The idea is very simple. Sneha and others have already talked about it, but there's an agent out there that's going to work continuously on my behalf as a planner. It's not taking a break, it's not sleeping, continuously looking for what can I do to make that planner's job easier and give that planner any information that they need to do their job better. So it's going to do things like, look for emails coming in and that unstructured data, structuring that for me so it's actionable and ready for me to act on. It will actually look at PO anomalies that I would have looked at and said, oh, that quantity doesn't look right, and reach out, draft, and send an email to suppliers on my behalf while I'm at home, which is awesome. So let's take a look at, I just ran it to say, look, you've been working all night. Tell me what I need to do as I walk in the office today. It's telling me the brief for today. I've got 5 critical things. These are about expedites. I have a total freight upcharge of $20,000, but I'm going to protect a whole lot of revenue at risk. We're going to come back to that in a minute. How did it know that? It's telling me exactly the POs that I need to approve. These are things that couldn't make it through the automated workflow. The expertise, the business acumen of the planner is required. And it's even highlighting, out of these 5, there's one that I'm not so sure about, and I really need you to pay extra attention to this. It's got, you ask for a requested date, and it's arriving 20 days late. And it's telling me the recommended actions, not just what happened, but recommending actions. So let's take a look at what this dashboard now looks like with the new way. Very cleaned up, very streamlined. The agents did 79 automated actions on my behalf when I wasn't there, and it was on time. Those suppliers sent emails, they were responded to immediately. It did things like we said, it sent emails directly to suppliers. 20 replies that came in from suppliers, that unstructured data was parsed and ready for action, ready for put into an automated workflow or sent directly to me as a planner to make some decisions. 32 POs processed automatically, and now it's dwindling down what is really important and really requires a planner's expertise. It's these 5 POs. I have more information about the 5 here. I can see even the initial email that was provided by the supplier, but again, I don't need to read that because the agent knows how to organize it for me. So let's drill into that expedite. And I see those same 5 POs now. I have a lot of information about them. I have the requested dates. The arrival dates are presented to me, but also just jump off the page which ones are good and which ones need more work. I can see the total amount of freight upcharge that it's going to require. And I see this revenue at risk. Very important. This agent not just knows how to get into my email, but it understands the supply plan. It can go deep into the plan to say what customers will be impacted by this supply if it's not received at the date that you requested. Not just for finished goods, for components. So a customer that has finished goods that requires a BOM, it can go deep in that BOM and peg that customer and tell me exactly who's going to be impacted. In fact, this is the overall number here, but I can see the actual customer orders presented to me. This was all organized and ready for me as I walked into my office. So the agents were able to do those 79 tasks on my behalf automatically, streamlining my work, and my day as a planner is starting off pretty well. I've got 4 POs that I could approve right here. I could ask Quincy to do it too. And that's 4 PO approvals in just a matter of minutes. Now this one up here, I'm gonna have to spend a little more time on, but this just saved me a lot of time, and now I'm gonna be able to spend my time on things that are going to be really important, protecting this revenue for the business. And that's what our supply orchestration solution can do for your business.
Great. Great. Thanks, Tammy. Appreciate that. Look, it's pretty cool to start thinking about how is businesses going to run with this kind of technology. And so we're really looking forward to your feedback and your thoughts, and we're going to take a break in a minute. But hopefully this planted some seeds, and you probably already have these ideas. And that's quite frankly one of the things that we want to start hearing and working with you on. We see in the last 2 months, we've been able to expand our vision, but more importantly, accelerate our path to that vision by taking these planning agents at speed and scale and bringing the value into CRM where customers are served and revenue grows, as well as these examples of orchestration. And so that will give us a lot to do and a lot to do together. But it doesn't stop there. It's not going to cover all the bases. So a couple of months ago, and I'm not going to steal Nikhil's thunder too much, but I'm going to set the stage for tomorrow morning, we organized a team within our services and engineering group to come together as our AI studio. Because what we saw was the potential, everyone's doing vibe coding and all these other things, and we want to embrace that. We want to see where can we start to find use cases at a faster pace. Maybe use cases that only apply to an industry or a certain company. But we want to leverage the fact that our technology and architecture is standard tech stack, open, And so when all the analytics is in Python, all the data is in the relational database, there's JSON and Salesforce, that gives us a tremendous opportunity to take this vibe code that maybe you write or we write in our studio and start to build prototypes. But then it doesn't stop there. That's kind of easy, putting a demo together, quite frankly. Well, I shouldn't say that with them three. Maybe they would say, no, it's not easy to demo. But the hard part is going from demo and excitement to then making it commercial and productized and making an implementation successful and then handling a roadmap and maintenance and all those things. So we as a software company, we have that structure. We have those processes, we have those teams, the expertise from DevOps to QA to everything else that has to happen to be able to go from excitement idea to a prototype all the way to value in a sustained and growing way. And so the AI Studio is our effort to essentially put an asset in the hands of everyone in this room, customers and partners alike. And you'll hear some ideas tomorrow that we've already been working on. And the things that you saw today kind of were birthed out of that, an initial statement where we started sitting down with a couple of customers and saying, what do you think about this? And they said, you've been reading my mind, was one of the quotes in those sessions. So we're excited about the future potential. It's far more than just planning and planners. There's a lot of value that we can deliver, use cases we can address, and we're in a great and exciting time. It can be overwhelming. Some days I know as a team, we're like, I can't believe all this is happening right now. But if we look at it with the positive, we're not going to figure it out all at once. It's going to be a journey, but it's going to be an adventure too. It's going to be an exciting one, and we're thankful that we're able to do that with you all today. And so we'll hear more about the AI Studio tomorrow with some demos and some real live examples. But for today, we've had a great morning session outside of me for getting this back there. I think it went pretty smoothly, so well done. And we'll take a quick 15, 20-minute break now, and then we'll come back for some great case studies and examples about what we just saw and heard early this morning. Thank you very much.